Hey guys, how's it going? If my head keeps going like this, it's because I'm testing out two different cameras. So, sorry, you see me doing this. What's up, guys? So we're here to talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Doctor Strange was the last movie to come out this year. So I felt like the same way I did it for the DCEU, I wanted to do one for the MCU. Now this isn't going to be a big in-depth video about every single thing that Marvel's done, because I don't want to make a huge video about that. There's a lot of videos I think online where someone actually goes and breaks down and does a whole retrospective on how Marvel's gotten to this point. I want to focus mainly on just a quick history of where they've come from and then where they are right now and where it seems they're going. Also, another thing I'm going to do in this video, same thing I did with the DCEU, is I'm not going to be comparing Marvel's universe to other people's universes. We're just going to be focusing on Marvel. Let's get that shit started. The Marvel Cinematic Universe started with Iron Man back in 2008, and this movie was a movie that I don't know how other people felt, but when it was coming out, I was just kind of like, okay, you know, whatever. Because at that point, superhero movies were kind of hit and miss. We had Batman Begins, which was a good, superhero movie, and then we had, the Spider-Man franchise was out there. X-Men movies were still doing all right, but there wasn't anything like, we had Catwoman, we had, I think, Fantastic Four by that point, so there was a lot of fuck-ups already. Iron Man was a success. We got our first end credit sequence, which showed Nick Fury suggesting that they're going to put together the Avengers, and people fucking freaked out when this happened. And then later on that same year, about a month later, we got the Incredible Hulk, which was a new, telling of the character. It wasn't related to that big green fucking, I don't even know what that is. I don't even know. Just, there was a frog and he was big and plumpy. He could jump for miles, whatever. So they had a new Incredible Hulk, and movie was all right. Get to the end credit sequence. Who do we fucking see? Tony Stark. This is, I think, the first moment people actually started to realize that this could actually be a thing. And then, a few movies later, we got the Avengers. So just to recount, we got Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America the First Avenger. 5 movies before we got them all in one movie together for the Avengers. And when the Avengers came out, it was like amazing. Like the reaction that it was getting. I remember like when the trailers were coming out, I'm like, man, everything looks good, but I don't know, it's a little scary. I think a lot of people were afraid that it was going to become like Iron Man and Friends, because that's how the X-Men movies were, and this was the first time that we got characters that all had their own setup movies, except for Black Widow and Hawkeye. They all got their own setup movies, and they joined together, and actually, like, the movie was really, really good. The progression's great. It's a movie that still holds up now, and that is only phase 1 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because these motherfuckers have phases. So, at this point, Avengers comes out, Comic-Con starts to become the thing that is like, oh, we're gonna get something great from Marvel, and almost every single time they didn't disappoint. Like, just some of the shit that they do.
This is some footage, about 4 minutes of footage that was cut together just for Comic-Con. This is made for you guys and people who know who Iron Man is. This is not about trying to get people to go see the movie who don't know who Tony Stark is. This is about comic book fans who want to see how we handle the material if we stay true to the books.
Lining up in the sweltering heat for hours. Huddling together in the dark. Like beasts. Where are your Avengers now?
You know, the great thing about Marvel is they've always got the next thing up their sleeve. So, well, you know, we've got Thanos. Josh Brolin! Where's my rose? We love you guys so much. We're so excited. Thanks for coming. We're going to keep trying to do our best for you.
And it's like every single movie they have has a hype train behind it. So that was phase 1. We got phase 1 out of the way. 6 movies consisted of phase 1. Phase 2, we got another 6 movies. Starts out with Iron Man 3. This was the first movie that had people kind of like this because it took a villain that, I mean, I didn't care for the Mandarin. I wasn't a big Iron Man fan growing up, so I didn't really know that much about him. When I learned that they changed about him, I'm like, oh yeah, well, if I was a fan, I'd be pissed off. But it's still a good movie, despite that. It's just not one of the best movies. So Iron Man 3 comes out, it's alright. Thor: The Dark World comes out, it's better than the first Thor. Some people still don't like it. It was at this point where people started to really realize Marvel had a problem with villains, because after seeing the Avengers and seeing Tom Hiddleston as Loki, it's really hard to follow that up. It's really hard. And with the way that they have their movies, you know, they focus so much on the superhero, they don't show enough of the villain. So there hasn't really been a character to match up to Loki at this point. So Iron Man 3 was kind of alright. Thor: The Dark World, it's kind of alright. Captain America: Winter Soldier comes out, and this shit was amazing. The Winter Soldier movie was, I think, the most action, like, how can I put it? It somehow feels like it's the grittiest one of all the other Marvel movies, because you have, like, it's basically an espionage film with superheroes in it. You got a story of, you know, someone we thought died in the Captain America movie is actually alive, and he's a villain, which is Bucky Barnes. Amazing. That movie is what I think landed the Russo brothers the job of, like, helming further Avenger type movies. Guardians of the Galaxy. This movie was, I think, Marvel's biggest gamble up until this point, because no one knew who the fucking Guardians of the Galaxy were. I didn't even know. I had to, like, look them up when it got announced. And when you hear about a talking tree and a talking raccoon, you're just like, what's gonna happen? This movie, I thought at one point the movie was gonna be for kids when I just heard about that. And then I started to read up on it, and the movie comes out, and it's one of most people's favorite movies from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It has a lot of comedy, it has a lot of action, it has a lot of heart. It does great. It does really well, actually. After that, we got our second Avengers movie, which is Age of Ultron. Doesn't do as good as the first one from a reception standpoint. Still a good movie. It introduced Quicksilver. It introduced Scarlet Witch. It gave us the Vision. Just amazing. And another important thing about Phase 2 is it was the phase that started to introduce people to the concept of the Infinity Stones. Because at the end of Avengers, we saw Thanos, and I would say about 60% of people who saw Thanos were like, who the fuck is this guy? And then Phase 2 spent a lot of time educating people on what Infinity Stones are, because that's what's going to eventually lead to the big fight with Thanos. So after Age of Ultron, we got Ant-Man. Still pretty good, still pretty funny. It wasn't as, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, the stakes were set back a lot. It's kind of like after you follow Avengers Age of Ultron, you know, where city's literally floating in the sky, then decided to make like a heist movie with Ant-Man, which I enjoyed. It's a pretty good movie. I love Paul Rudd. Oh yeah, and quick comment on Ant-Man, because I forgot to mention this when I originally edited the video. Ant-Man is, I think, the only time that people were a little nervous about the outcome of a movie, because Edgar Wright had been working on Ant-Man for years. I think he had been working on it since like 2008. He had worked on the movie for a very long time and ended up leaving the movie for creative differences, which is like, wow, dude, like, how bad were these differences that you worked on this movie for like fucking, how many years was it? Like, I think he was working on it for 6 years, and then he just, like, either they let him go or he left on his own. I think he left on his own because he just didn't want to be tied up in the project anymore. But yeah, it's the first time in all the movies. So that's Marvel's 12th movie, and it's their 12th movie where a director decided, we can't do it. We don't want to do it anymore. And that's Phase 2. So Phase 1, awesome. It's a whole new world. Phase 2 is all right. Look at where they are. This is where they're going. Phase 3. Now, when the Phase 3 announcement came out for Marvel, it was like, I remember going home and watching the entire thing and just trying to imagine what everybody who was there must have felt like. Because to give you, like, to kind of explain how it happened, is about a week before, DC and Warner Brothers actually had released their slate of movies that were coming out. Like, they were pretty much like, hey guys, here's our plan. And they were essentially showing everyone, okay, we're going to start with this, that, and the other, and moving forward. So, and then Marvel didn't say anything. And then a week later, I think Kevin Feige or Marvel Studios released like a tweet to kind of be like, hey, we're going to have a press event. And all the press showed up. And just, this is where they dropped like the big bomb. This is where, like, I rewatched the shit like so many times because just the way they went about it was amazing. And I'm just going to go ahead and show you that clip.
And again, now we've talked about the new, let's talk about what has come before, and let's talk about the notion that we have always had a plan. We have always had a plan from the moment Nick Fury broke into Tony Stark's house and told him he was a part of a bigger universe, he just didn't know it yet. Well, I think he knows it now, and by May 4th, 2018, everybody will know it because it is the beginning of the culmination of everything that has come before.
That would affect the team.
That would end the team. Isn't that the mission? Isn't that the why we fight? So we can end the fight, so we get to go home?
Every time someone tries to win a war before it starts, innocent people die. Every time.
Nice.
That's a pretty good, that's a really good clip, actually, John. It gets embarrassing when I'm standing here and I go, plan, we have a plan, and then I find myself doubting the plan, and I go, I'm having buyer's remorse on that Serpent Society subtitle for Captain America 3. It feels like there must be a better title somewhere.
Just, and then what does he do after dropping that bomb? Who shows up on stage? Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans. And then what do? They, after announcing there's gonna be a Black Panther movie, they then show you the concept art for Black Panther and then bring Black Panther out. The guy who was like casted to be Black Panther is bring his ass out right there. Amazing. So, what they had originally announced to flesh out Phase 3 were the following movies. Captain America, which was called Serpent Society, then changed to Civil War. So Captain America Civil War, Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Thor Ragnarok, Black Panthers, Avengers Infinity War, Ant-Man 2, which I think they announced it. It was like Ant-Man and the Wasp, I think. And then they had the other Avengers Infinity movie, and then they had Inhumans. So that was the plan until just about, I don't know, 2 or 3 months later, we come to find out that they finally struck a deal with Sony to have the right to use Spider-Man in an Avengers movie and make a Spider-Man movie. So what do? They immediately move everything that's Thor Ragnarok and back. They push them all a date back, so everyone has all different dates, and they immediately are like, nope, that's going to be Spider-Man. They announce it much later on as Homecoming, and they let you know that the first time you're going to see Spider-Man was in Captain America Civil War, which was already in filming. And I had a video where I was pretty much saying, oh yeah, don't expect a lot of Spider-Man, because there's no way they're going to be able to cram any type of Spider-Man-esque things in Civil War when it's already in filming. Spider-Man's in the big major scene, and he's like the best part of the fucking scene. One of the best parts. So that was the announcement of Phase 3. So far, we are 2 movies into Phase 3. We had Captain America Civil War, which was great. It was just... You had pretty much superheroes that you've seen since the beginning of the cinematic universe going forward, and you split them against each other and had them fight each other for a reason that made sense. The villain, some people are wishy-washy about if they like the villain or not. I think the villain was fine. I think it was a good way to adapt the comic, and just an amazing, like, this is like, if Avengers was a big triumph for them the first time, I think the second triumph was to bring Civil War to the screen to the best way possible. And then now we just had Doctor Strange, which Doctor Strange is just blowing people's minds with visual effects. After further thought about the movie, I like the movie a lot. It's not one of my favorites, but it's still a pretty good movie, and it's opening the world of the Marvel Cinematic Universe to more opportunities, because now, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it yet, but Doctor Strange messes with other dimensions and other realities, and there's just so much shit you can do with the idea of alternate realities. So that's where we are right now, and the only thing that has changed with Marvel's plans so far is, for Phase 3, is they had changed the name of Avengers Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2. Apparently those aren't going to be the names of the movies anymore. And it just got announced yesterday that the Inhumans movie that they were originally going to do, which I think was going to come out in 2020 or 2019, they're making that into a 8-episode TV show, where 2 of the episodes are going to be shown in IMAX, which I have no idea like what they're thinking about doing. I heard the whole thing's only going to have like 8 episodes, and they're working with ABC on it, and I'm just like, I'm a little disappointed, because I really wanted to see the Inhumans have their own movie, because there's a lot you could do there. But I mean, we just have to go and see. It kind of sucks. I really wanted to see them in a movie, but it looks like it's just gonna have to be a TV show, and that's it. So anyway, that's where we are with the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far. It's been a great ride. I think Marvel's success in creating this universe is the reason why other studios are doing that now. I think a lot of the reason why they've been so successful is they've kind of found a formula to make movies have action, have humor, and find ways to try to explain the costumes. They find a way to make costumes make sense, and they find a way to make character motivation make sense, and they try the best way they can to not only explain a character, but to link them to other characters. Oh, and another reason why Marvel's probably so successful is that they don't release unfinished movies and then promise you a better version of the movie in Blu-rays. What the fuck, bruh? The fuck, bruh? Get the fuck out of here, man. So, how do you guys feel about the Marvel Cinematic Universe at this point? And also, how do you guys feel about the news of the Inhumans now becoming a TV show instead of a movie like they had originally planned? Let me know your guys' thoughts. Later.